Hi, this is Michael Jamin, and you're watching the TV Writer Podcast.
My name's Gray Jones, and I want to welcome you to the TV Writer Podcast, partner of Script Magazine, episode 111 for August 18th, 2020. Today, I'm going to bring you an interview with Michael Jamin, who is a comedy writer who's written on a boatload of shows, half hour, 1 hour, animation, live action. He's got a lot of experience over the years, and he actually distills it into a course that he's going to tell you about in the second part of the interview. Bit of a housekeeping announcement. This is the 20th weekly episode since quarantine started, and I'm taking a 2-week break before resuming right after Labor Day. September 8th will be an episode with Elaine Lowe, and September 15th with Joel Thompson. I'm actively seeking new showrunners and upper-level writers to interview, so if you know anyone you think would be a good fit, please reach out. This is a great time to check out older episodes. If you go to tvwriterpodcast.com and scroll down, you can click on tags that filter for special interests like women TV writers, Canadian writers, showrunners, animation, black TV writers, and more. Some recommended episodes are my interview with Sean Ryan in episode 101, both my interviews with Carol Kirshner in episode 103 and 54, my How to Write a TV Pilot panel at San Diego Comic-Con in episode 85, Stephanie Palmer, author of Good in a Room, in episode 65, Ellen Sandler, author of TV Writer's Workbook, in episode 16, and lots more. You're going to love the interview. Let's roll. Well, I am so pleased to be with Michael Jamin, TV writer and showrunner, who has written on such shows as King of the Hill, Maron, Beavis and Butthead, and is currently a consulting producer on Takoma FD. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm really pleased that you can make the time for this interview. You've written on quite a few cool shows over the years.
I guess I'm old. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
And it seems like you went from pretty strong shows to pretty strong shows, very well-known shows. But I would love to know sort of where you started and how you got there. Like where did you grow up? College? When did you know that you wanted to write?
So I grew up in New York. I went to college at Princeton in New Jersey. In high school, I remember watching Cheers and thinking I would do anything to be a writer on that show. And I thought, well, if I could just get a job as a grip, maybe I could work my way up. And that's not how it works. And grips are not lower than writers. It doesn't work that way at all. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know anybody in Hollywood or whatever. But I got out of college and I just got in my car. 2 weeks later, I drove out to LA. I didn't know anybody, didn't have a place to stay. And I was like, I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna figure out how to get in. So.
Very cool. So when you came, I mean, had you studied at all, or did you just land and what now, or what was that like?
I applied as a freshman and a junior to the creative writing program in college, and both years they said, "I'm sorry, you're just not good enough." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know I'm not good enough. That's why I need to be in your program." So, yeah, I just wanted it, and I got out here, and I was able to find a great writing teacher. He was a retired guy. He had written on a bunch of sitcoms that way, like Get Smart and Twilight Zone, shows that I just loved. And I wanted to learn from somebody who had a lot of experience. And I was so fortunate to have found him. I studied under him for a little bit. Then I broke in as a PA on a couple of shows. And then once you're a PA, you can learn from the working writers in the show. And that's really, it's just a blessing.
Yeah. And you got a freelance script for Lois and Clark. Was that fairly early on, or was that, how did you get to that point?
So I had been in LA for about 2 years, and I finally got a job. It's probably even less. After about maybe a few months, I got a job as a PA in a show called Evening Shade, and then that went away, and I got a job as a writer, as the assistant to executive producers, and they were doing another show on CBS. Wonderful people, Brad Buckner and Eugenie Russ-Lending. So I was there. So I answered the phones, got them lunch. That was basically it. But I did that for a couple of years, and those years killed me because I was like, I'm just doing menial work.
Yeah.
They wound up running a show called Lois and Clark, Superman. And this was a couple of years later, and they brought me back into pitch because they were just lovely and they liked me. And so my partner and I pitched an episode that they liked, and that became like one of their highest rated episodes. That was that part was kind of luck because we had our episode aired after a really, really strong episode, the one that had done really well. And because we aired afterwards, The ratings are even higher on ours. But
Uh,
it sounds like I'm bragging, but it's more like we were just piggybacking on someone else's idea.
and who is your writing partner?
Sivert Glarum. We've been writing
Mhm.
together since I guess '93.
Oh, you're still okay. Still writing together.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's like a marriage.
Cool. And so talk about that. Your first script. Did you think like, wow, I've made it now, or what was your mentality like then?
Well, I remember when I first got my agent, I thought, wow, I made it. And
Hmm.
that was I mean, honestly, as I drove home that day after the news, I was on cloud nine. As soon as I got home, I realized that's bullshit. I haven't made it at all. I got an agent, until there's money in my pocket. I haven't made anything.
Yeah.
And she wound up actually doing nothing for us and
Hmm.
wound up dumping us. And so the agent part didn't make it.
Hmm.
I think we really first made it when we got our first staff writing job on Just Shoot Me. Then I felt like, wow,
Hmm.
I've arrived. But the minute I got in, I was like, oh no, I'm in a way over my head.
Uh-huh.
So you never feel
Well,
like you made it.
I guess it must have helped to have a writing partner through that experience.
Yeah, he's very talented. And especially when you write comedy, you have someone you can bounce off of because
Hmm.
you don't know if it's funny unless someone laughs, you
Yeah.
know?
And so we'll talk about that in the room. Did you find you got the room very quickly, or what? I mean, you were on Just Shoot Me for a
Yeah.
while.
4 years. Yeah, from the
Hmm.
start for 4 years, then we went to King of the Hill.
Yeah.
No, the first 6 weeks I was like, I'm going to be fired. Everything I said was bad.
Uh-huh.
Everyone in the room was so funny. There were so many heavy
Hmm.
hitters in that show. It was like, and it was hilarious. You couldn't stop laughing. But I'm laughing, but I'm not contributing. So
Mm.
why are they not going to fire me? And then I
Yeah.
try to contribute something, and it would be bad, or it would be and I didn't know. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know
Mm.
what I was doing. I was lucky. We wrote a good script, so we got in. But once you're in, you're just hanging on, by your nails, hoping not to get, fired. And so they brought us back season two,
Mm.
and that's kind of when we started getting our legs, and
Mm.
and things got a little easier.
Yeah. And so were there any particular mentors through that time, or people that helped you, older writers
Yeah,
in the show?
for sure. I mean, I turned to so many of them. There was a guy, Stephen Engel. He had run before that a show called Dream On. Super
Hmm.
smart and funny guy. There was Andy Gordon. He's since done a ton of shows. Before that, he was Mad About You. And,
Hmm.
Eileen Kahn was his partner. She's hilarious. And then Marsh McCall, who had run Conan. He passed a couple of years ago, but he gave me
Hmm.
some wonderful advice. I remember turning to him after maybe a few months in the show. I was like, Marsh, I'm going to get fired. I don't know what I'm doing. Every time someone pitches a joke, I'm like, I'm so far behind. I can't beat anybody.
Mm.
And he said, he was this great advice. He said, if everyone's racing towards that one punchline, you're never going to beat them there because they're just faster than you and better than you. You have to
Mm.
find another way to get there. You have to go around instead of going to the wall, run around the wall, dig under the wall, jump over the wall. And that just opened up my mind. It was like, oh, so there's not just one way to get to the joke. You can just,
Mm.
as long as you pitch something that's funny, that gets you there, it doesn't matter how you get there. And that was just
Mm.
it was just so eye opening for me. And I kind of tell that story a lot. I was like so grateful for that advice.
Very, very cool. And so where did you leave off? Just shoot me. I mean, tell me about. Did you? I mean, how did you get that Beavis and Butthead job?
Oh, that was I think we got Beavis and Bud. After 4 years at Just Shoot Me, we got an offer to go out on King of the Hill.
Oh,
Now
King of the Hill. Sorry.
back then it was not it was if you're on a show for 2 3 years, it was very common for you to jump on another show and get more
Mm.
money on another show, and you'd move around. Nowadays, you you cling onto a show. If you're on a show and it's doing okay, you stay there. You don't go
Mm.
anywhere. It's because
Yeah.
it's just a different marketplace now. And so we went to King of the Hill, and then that introduced us to Mike Judge, and that turned it out to be a couple episodes of Beavis and Butthead along the line. But yeah.
Hmm. And well, actually, that makes a good point because I noticed in your resume that you did quite a few shows that were sort of one season, maybe one, 2 seasons. Was that a lot of because of that sort of, you know, uh, deal for a new
Mhm.
deal for each show and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we were on rules of engagement. We At the time we had an overall deal at CBS, so they just
Hmm.
stuck us on the show. We were getting paid either way, so they said, "Okay, you're getting paid. Go on this show," and so that
Hmm.
was fine. But then after that, I think after that we got an offer to run Maron, which was 4 years. You don't know it's going to go 4 years.
Hmm.
Some of the shows we've been on, we left because it's like a small order. Instead of on Just Shoot Me, you do like 24 episodes a year, and I get paid per
Hmm.
episode. But
Yeah.
now that the work has migrated to smaller cable outlets, instead of doing 24 episodes, you might do 10 a year.
Mm.
So So that means you got to look for your next job because you don't want to live on just 10 episodes. So that's why my credits tend to be shorter now because you're kind of just jumping around to whoever's hiring.
And so, Maron, you were actually brought on to run that show. Was that the first time you had run the room, or when did you start running the room as a team?
Before that, we got a job. Michael Eisner, who ran Paramount many years ago, he had a cartoon, a stop motion animation cartoon that they needed a showrunner for. That was called Glenn Martin D.D.S. and that was on Nick at Night. And so that was our first chance to run a show, although it was animated. And so that was like, a great experience. We did that for 2 years and the show was canceled. But that's where you really learn how to break a story, how to be a boss, and it's really, jump into the fire.
What and tell me about, because you've done more than one animated show. Is it very different running the room there and running the room for just what do you call it? Just live action?
It's really not. It's the same. You're telling stories. It's the same thing. I'm not an animated writer. I'm a comedy writer, or a TV writer. The bigger difference would be if you're writing for a single camera show or a multi-camera show. So the single camera would be like Modern Family, and a multi-camera show would be Friends. So you have those 4 cameras and live studio audience. But at the end of the day, it's still story. You're just telling stories. So it's not like a giant leap.
Yeah. Well, talk about 4 years on the Maron show. What was that experience like for you, running the room from the beginning and having it renewed and renewed?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, so that was our first job running a live action show. And the budget was tiny because it was on IFC. So the budget was probably like a third of what it would be for, let's say, ABC or something. And I remember the executive from 20th Century Fox was giving us a tour of the rundown studio offices they were giving us because it was so low budget. And she's like, I shouldn't tell you this, but we're all laughing at you over at corporate. We don't think you can make the show on this budget. And I was just like, oh, no, man. Like, this is my first day as a showrunner. Like, I don't need to hear this. And I said, well, do we get a whiteboard? Because, one of these whiteboards. And she goes, oh, we got a supply room full of whiteboards. No problem there. You can get as many whiteboards as you want. And I just like, oh, it's fine. As long as I get a whiteboard, we'll be fine. And so that's exactly what it was. Most shows have like a 5-day shooting schedule. This show was 2.5 days. So it was always like, hurry up, like get this shot, move on. The lighting has to be good enough. You can't be great. And it was all about, and it was almost guerrilla, and it was fun because the budget's that low, they leave you alone. Like they just leave you alone. So creatively, you get to do what you want as long as you're on budget. You don't get a lot of notes because you don't have time to take a lot of notes. It was fun.
Yeah, no, I've been on shows like that where the network knows that if they gave a note, you couldn't afford to shoot it, so they'll just leave off.
I did that as Red. I said, "You sure you want that? That's a $40,000 note." And they're like, "Oh no, never mind."
Oh, that's great. And so after Maron, where did you go from there?
After Maron, I think we did Brickleberry, which was an animated show for a year. Then we jumped. I'm looking at my wall, my credits. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what we did after that. I think we did. Maybe Wilfred came after that, and then that was an interesting show. And then we also did. We ran another show on YouTube, Red, which for a year, and then Takoma FD, which we've done for 2 years now. So you're always kind of hopping around,
Yeah. So tell me about some of the signposts. Like, were any of these shows that you developed?
No, most of them, all the shows that we've run, all 3 of them were created by other people. They were just looking for showrunners. And the other shows were just either a co-executive producer or just some level of writer on it. So we're not being created.
Yeah. So
but we do create shows and sell them. They just don't. They just don't go to series. So
yeah. So we'll talk about that development process. What kind of shows do you develop together? What does that look like? I mean, with you and your writing partner, does one of you come in one day and say, "Hey, I got an idea for this," and you workshop it together? Or?
Sometimes it's a producer will come to us with an idea who has a lot of juice and they're looking for a writer. So we tend to do a lot of that. A lot of times it's a comedian who has about to pop, and we'll develop a show for that comedian and then pitch it. Sometimes it comes from our own brains. But more often than not, it's someone else's idea that we're trying to get off the ground, because then you have another piece. You have someone else in your corner fighting. And to us, it really doesn't. I don't really care if it's my idea or their idea. I'm just looking for an ally. I'm doing, when you do it so long, it becomes your idea anyway, because, you make it yours. You bring the characters and you just fall in love with it. So it feels like you came up with it anyway.
Well, just because it's fresh, wait and tell me about Takoma FD.
So those are the guys, the Broken Lizard guys. They're a comedy
Mm-hmm.
troupe. They've been together since college.
Yeah.
And then they wrote the Super Trooper movies. And these are just like, they kind of came up from outside the system. They indie movies, they figured out funding, and these movies became kind of like cult hits. And so they never broke into Hollywood. They did it themselves, and Hollywood came to them. And so that's what it is. So then Hollywood came to them and said, hey, how about, can you do a TV show for us about, and they said, okay, we have an idea about firefighters. And so they're terrific. I mean, so they're in the room, two of them are in the room, Steve Lemmy and Kevin Heffernan. They run the show, and they're also the main actors in the show. So it's great because you could just pitch an idea and you know if they like, the actor is going to like it or not, or they put their spin on it. So it's actually helpful to have the actor in the room. I mean, because then you can see they can act it out. Is it good or bad? And, you know, it's fun. Yeah.
That's actually quite cool.
Yeah.
And so you've done that for one season and then COVID happened, right?
2 seasons, then COVID.
Oh, 2 seasons. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to take a quick break to hear from sponsors. And after that, I want to hear about this course that you've been developing.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
DrivingFootage.com provides 4K 9-angle driving plates for film and television. Over 14,000 clips are available for locations all around Southern California, with more areas coming soon. A fully equipped camera car with height-adjustable rig is available for custom shoots and second-unit photography. Visit DrivingFootage.com for details. AVGearGuide.com provides computer and gear rentals serving the LA area, including laptops with Final Draft, as low as $9 a day, with long booking rates available. They also scan photos, documents, video and audio tapes, and film reels to digital, so you can easily share with your friends and family. Not only can you scan prints as low as 25 cents, slides and negatives as low as 33 cents, and import videotapes as low as $7.99. Mention the name of the TV Writer Podcast and you will get 10% off your order. Visit avgearguide.com for details. Full disclosure, I do own both of these companies. By supporting them, you help me bring new in-person video interviews to you.
And we're back. So you've been really busy during COVID, and you have been developing a course for screenwriting. Tell me about that.
I've been not busy during COVID. So all the shows, all the production is shut down, all the live action. There's animated, so we're selling some animated. Yeah, we got a couple of animated projects in various stages of development. But then I just knew I was going to have a ton of time. I mean, it's already been like 4 months. So a friend of mine was like, you got to make an online screening course. He went to film school and I've sat with him and I've told you, because they didn't teach me any of this at film school. You have to do this. So I made a course, and it took a long time to do it. And this is basically called The Showrunner's Guide to TV Writing. It's everything that I wish I had known before breaking. It would have helped me break in. It would have helped me navigate all the pitfalls, and just a better writer all around. So, and that is at if you go to michaeljamin.com/gray, after you, my friend.
Oh, cool.
Then you'll get your listeners will get a discount, as well as they'll get a discount for the course, and they can sign up. And you can get 3 free. I give my first 3 lessons are free, so you can see if you like it, and if you do, you can continue. If not, hey, it's okay.
Very, very cool. Well, tell me more about the nuts and bolts of the course. Like who is it for? What do people learn? Do you have a structure to it? Can you take me through a bit more of it?
It's 6 or almost 7 hours of video courses, and each one is different in character development, creating memorable characters, how to break a story, how to write a beat sheet, how to write an outline, how to write your first draft, how to pitch a show, how to create a pilot, how to pitch it to a network. So it really covers, as far as everything I can think of, everything. And then I do a lot of case studies of like breaking down episodes that we wrote, we put on TV, how we came up with that idea, how we took a germ of an idea, one line, and spread it out into an episode, where the act breaks fall, how to know where the act breaks are, what they should be. So story breaking is a huge part of it, because that's a skill that it's so hard to learn. So
it sounds like it would be just as applicable for 1 hour as half hour.
Yeah. I mean, I have done some hour long. My background is obviously comedy, but it's story is story. You could do it if you want to be a screenwriter, if you want to be a playwright, you want to write a short story. It's all about story structure. And so if you want it to be a drama, just don't put jokes in it. You know, Maron, which we ran, obviously that was a dark comedy. It was not funny, really. I mean, there were funny moments, but it was pretty dark. So that was more of a drama than a comedy. So
Yeah. Well, I've
Yeah.
heard Sheldon Bull. He wrote Elephant Bucks. He's a proponent of the fact that if a comedy doesn't work as a drama, it's not going to work as a comedy.
I agree with that. Yeah,
Hmm.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. And so, how's the response been? Has it already been
Oh,
released?
it's just about to go live in a
Oh,
couple
okay.
of days. Yeah, so people could sign up. I don't know when this is going to air, but by the time this airs, it'll probably be live.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, this is going to air in late August, so it will have
Yeah,
been released
yeah,
for a
yeah.
number of weeks by then.
Right.
Very cool. Well, just generally speaking, you've distilled this into a course. You've watched Hollywood over the last 3 decades. Um, what what do you feel about the state of the industry right now versus say 10, 20 years ago?
So I think it's easier to break in now. It's
Hmm.
harder to make a living.
Hmm.
So the in is the barrier of entry is low. You can put it with your phone. You can put something on YouTube or Facebook and get a following, and next thing you know, Hollywood comes to you because you have created something that people want to watch and they want to put it on their network.
Hmm.
So in that sense, the barrier entry is much easier. All you need to know, but you have to know how to write. I mean, you're not going to go anywhere if it's not good, right?
Hmm.
So writing, I still think is the key. Um, but then in terms of making a living, like I said, the orders have gotten shorter. Just shoot, maybe we did 24 episodes a year. Now it's 10 or 13. And so you're
Hmm.
constantly hopping around for the next job, or it's just more of a hustle now.
Yeah.
So,
And do you find you do most of that hustling? Does your agent do a lot of it for you?
So we didn't. No, you have to do it yourself. We have we
Hmm.
have it. We had an agent. Then all the agents and all the writers in Hollywood basically fired our agents.
Yeah.
There's a move now. We just learned that our agency assigned the code of conduct or something like that. United Talent Agency, which is one of the big
Hmm.
four. So we'll see what happens now. But agents, for the most part, they really field offers.
Hmm.
So they don't go out. If an agent represents 10 writers and they submit 10 writers for a job, they don't really care which one gets the job as long as
Hmm.
one of them gets the job. It's
Yeah.
the same amount, it's, I mean, so they're not really going to fight for you. They have relationships with town. They don't want to burn these relationships.
Hmm.
So you still have to hustle no matter what agency you're at. You
Yeah.
still have to be responsible for your own career.
Yeah. Well, and what does that hustle look like for you? Like, as you're on a show, are you doing a lot of networking?
Not,
How do you keep your ear to the ground?
not so much that, but in terms of we're constantly writing, even now, after all these years, we're writing spec scripts just to
Hmm.
show a different side of us, to update our samples, to show that, hey, we can write dramedy, we can do this. And so if you're a writer and you feel like, well, I only want to write one script, like that's not how it works. Like we don't get paid when we write these sample scripts. Like these are just they're samples, so people can judge our work.
Hmm.
Like if that part doesn't appeal to you, then the profession is not for you. If you
Right.
have to want to be a writer, you have to want to write.
Yeah. Well, course aside, what would you say are some of the best resources for somebody who is learning to write or wants to develop their craft?
Well, that's why I think I put together my
Yeah.
course. Hopefully that would be. I mean, there are. I'm sure there are. I don't know what the best resources. The Writers Guild of America, I'm sure, has scripts, at least in the library. I don't know if they're
Hmm.
available to the public. I don't know, but they have a library. A lot of the stuff you can get online, sample scripts of shows that are free, and you study them. So don't just
Hmm.
watch these shows, read them, and study them and take notes. So even now, when I watch a show, if I'm creating a show and I want to go
Hmm.
back and learn from it, I'll watch it once for myself, and the second time I'll take notes, figure out,
Right.
okay, at what point does this happen, and how many minutes in does this happen, stuff like that.
Hmm. Very cool. We're going to transition a little bit to talk about specifically for younger writers, advice to people who are sort of earlier in their career. What mistakes do you see people commonly making in the sort of less advanced levels?
So I get this all the time. I get people, especially now that this course is out, people, they hit me up, hey, how do I get my script read? How do I break in? And I think that's the wrong question to be
Hmm.
asking.
Yeah.
I think so. Like, here's an example. If you forget about being wanting to be a writer, let's say you wanted to be a basketball player in the NBA, and you called up, you sent a coach of the Knicks an email. Hey, how do I become? I want to be on the NBA. I want to be an All-Star. How do I get on the team? Like the coach is going to
How
say,
do I get
okay,
named it?
yeah. The coach is going to be, well, when was the last time you played? Well, I
Yeah.
played last summer in a league. I played every day in a league last summer. Okay. why are you not playing right now? Why are you emailing me? Well, I want to break in. It's like, are you nuts? You should be working on your craft. You should be out there on the courts every day. And it's not about like begging to get in. The coach is not going to let you be on the team because you sent an email. So it's the same thing as a writer. Like if you wrote your script last summer, you spent all summer writing your script and now it's perfect. Well, why are you not writing today? You should be continuing to write, continuing to work on your craft every day, because that's how you get better. You don't polish this thing that you wrote last summer. Just to give you another example, when we ran the show called Rhett and Link's Buddy System, it was on YouTube Red. Like, what's YouTube Red? But it was a network they were trying to get off the ground. And so it was real low budget. The show was really funny. Those two stars were terrific. But it was low budget. And so the network gave us money for staff. And they wanted us to hire like 3 writers. And I said, well, I would really feel more, my partner, I said, we'd be more comfortable if you could hire one writer that we've worked with, one really good one, as opposed to 3 ones that are low rent. Yeah. And like, no, we want 3 fresh writers. So I was like, no, I'm not going to, I can't win that fight. So now we're looking for writers kind of like in your audience, people who have never sold anything before, people who want to break in. And so we read a ton of scripts. And it was getting very frustrating and demoralizing because I read, like, I don't want, most of these scripts, 99% are just mediocre. Like, I'm not going to hire a mediocre writer. That doesn't do me any good. I need a good writer. Like, so, and then finally, one of the executive producers on the show, she's a non-writing executive producer. She goes, here, how about this script? And she put it on my desk. And I got 10 pages into it. And I go, he's hired. Like, that's all. It was the script was very good. It stood out. And I didn't need to read anymore. I could tell, you're done. He's hired. And we brought him in, and he was great, and I would work with him again. And so the point I'm saying is a great script. And I don't know how this woman, the executive producer, I don't know how this script got on her desk. I'm assuming someone read it, thought this was great. I can't hire this guy, but I'm going to pass it on to my friend, and it's going to get passed around town because a good script gets passed around. A mediocre script does not get passed around.
And so just what was the difference between the mediocre one and the good one? Do you remember sort of what were some of the mistakes you saw people making in the mediocre ones, or what popped in that one?
Most people do not know what a story is. They just have no understanding. Most people, they'll put jokes that are not sharp or jokes that are just not fresh that you've heard before. They don't understand mostly story structure. It's like I can get to page 5, and if I'm not hooked on page 5, I throw it out and I start the next one because I got a stack of scripts this to the ceiling. I might as well just move on to the next one. And so when I found this guy's script that was really good, it wasn't more like he wasn't begging me to get on the show. I was begging him. Because I was like, I need you because you're good and I can't find anybody else that's good. I told the executive, let's hire him now. I don't want to lose this guy. And he was at the time he was working in advertising. He wasn't even a TV writer. I go, he's that good. I don't want to lose him. I'm begging him to come on my show as opposed to the other way around. And I think most you new writers have that approach of, I'm begging you to give me a shot. Work on your writing. If your writing is good or great, I'm begging you.
Very cool. And what about in interviews when you're interviewing somebody? What makes them stand out versus somebody who you want to pass on?
At this point, all I cared was that he wasn't a drooling idiot. Honestly, is he like is he just a mess? And like, no, he was a normal person. Fine, you're hired. There are things that you can do in the writer's room that will get you fired, though, and that is if you're argumentative, if you're constantly fighting for your own stuff because you think you know better. And I've been on shows where young writers do that because they want to be heard and they want their vision on the air. And it's like, no. You want to just do what the showrunner tells you to do. Yeah. That's your job, to please the showrunner. And so being precious about your words and your lines, it's like, no, you got a lot to learn, especially when you're starting off. So, just be polite, be mindful, don't fight.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we're going to start to wrap things up a little bit, but what would you wish you had known when you started that you know now? Is there anything that you think, oh man, if I had only known that?
Yeah. Basically how to break a story. And that, because my first samples were like, I had an idea and it felt good. I was writing from my gut. And so that was good enough. But I always felt after that first sample, I was like, I don't think I can do this again. Like I felt like I just got lucky. I had a good idea and I got lucky. When you're a TV writer, you are expected to do that you got to put an episode of TV out every week, right? So you can't rely on luck or your gut. You have to know how to do it. So learning how to break a story into 3 acts, that's what we call story breaking. You do you draw lines on the board and you break it. That is a skill that's everything.
Hmm. And how can somebody learn that? Like, would you suggest that people have their own whiteboard and just practice breaking each story, or is it something you can only learn as you're actually in the process?
And that's what I try to teach in the course. I really try to take you, hey, I'm going to teach you how to break a story from a germ of an idea, and whether it's big enough to have a story or not. And that's almost the entire course. But the way if you don't want to take that, the way you can learn is by watching TV and taking notes, but you're not writing down jokes. You're writing notes about what the characters want at each scene and what the act breaks are, and try to reverse engineer it. Reverse engineering is a little hard though, and I find that a lot of teachers try to, we're going to take this great movie and we're going to reverse engineer. It's like, that's not how you make a great movie, but okay, if you want to study it, sure.
Yeah. Just career-wise, if you could think of one thing that helps you make it in this business long-term, what do you think it is?
You have to be nice to people for sure. Even assistants, especially assistants, because they're not going to be assistants forever. They're going to rise up. They're going to be agents, executives, or whatever. To make it in the business, I think a lot of people think, oh, I want to get my show made, and I have a vision or my movie made, and they want to come out to Hollywood, and that's what they want to see on the screen. And if you want to have a career on it, then you have to approach it as, I just want to work. I want to learn the craft. I want to help someone else get their vision. I want to be a writer on a staff. I want to learn how to do this. And then at some point, maybe you'll get lucky enough to have that opportunity. But if you go in shooting for the moon, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
Not at all.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, final thoughts. Tell me that link again for your course.
michaeljamin.com/gray. You can
easy link
Gray.
to remember.
Yeah.
Very cool. And are you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle?
Easier is probably Facebook, which is Michael Jamin Writer. So it's Michael, and Jamin is Jamin Writer. And I guess I'm on Twitter somewhere. You can find me, but I don't tweet much.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking this time, and I think that course actually sounds like a really, really helpful place for people to come and learn about the nuts and bolts from.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Greg.
And that was my interview with Michael Jamin. Please do check out his course, michaeljamin.com/gray. Easy to remember. And do check for us every Tuesday.
Starting back again just after Labor Day on September 8th. Make sure to subscribe on all of the places you can find this podcast: Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, the TVWriterPodcast.com site, or also at scriptmag.com, and now also on Pandora. And if you're on Instagram, please follow at TV Writer Podcast. Please do follow me on Twitter. At Gray Jones is my handle. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do it for as little as 25 cents per episode. You can find out how you can become a patron of the podcast or a sponsor of the podcast at tvwriterpodcast.com/support.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.